Hey y'all, welcome to the final episode of season 2 for Engaged Voters, the podcast. As y'all know, we rolled out our season is voting for the culture, and this episode is from hip hop to the polls, or from the bars to the polls. And I have a very special guest that is an expert in this, and I would like for her to introduce herself because we got a lot we need to talk about.
Hello, everybody. My name is Shelby Stewart. I am the associate editor at Essence Magazine. I am also the founder of the Houston Hip Hop Museum. I wear a lot of different
A
hats,
lot
but
of
I'd like to think that I do have just a little bit of knowledge about the topic. I didn't know this was actually going to be your season finale.
Yes,
That's
this is
so
the
dope.
season finale. I was waiting. I was like, look, we gonna end it. We started with a bang and we're about to end with a bang.
I love that.
Because if y'all notice, she said she is the founder of
Yes.
HTX Hip Hop Museum. Y'all need to look into it. We'll drop all the links and stuff so y'all can go all of them, and support them. But it's been a lot of chitter chatter
Yes.
about or chit chatter, excuse me, about celebrities, specifically rappers and artists being involved in politics.
Yes.
Most recently, Meg Thee Stallion performed for Kamala Harris's campaign rally
Yes.
in Georgia.
hmm
And the people had a lot to say. But
Mhm.
before we dive into that, so that's kind of basically what we're going to talk about. But I wanted to bring up some facts, some things that I kind of looked into about like hip hop and voting.
Okay.
Now, rappers have an elevated platform in politics since Obama's presidency and even before. Before President Joe Biden dropped out of the election, there were a couple of artists who endorsed him, backed him, supported him. From Fat Joe, Queen Latifah, Lizzo, John Legend in 2020, Offset, Common in 2020, Plies, 50 Cent. He was like a Trump supporter, but in 2020, he like switched from Trump to Joe Biden. Then for Donald Trump, some people who have supported him, Sexy Red, she was on a podcast saying like, I rocks with Donald Trump. Lil Pump, Ice Cube in 2020, Chief Keef. And now Kamala Harris is running for president, and there are also other artists who are supporting her, from Common, Questlove, Lil Nas X, Cardi B. She at first is like she's not really proud of the options, but Beyonce, she allowed Kamala Harris to use her song, John Legend, Lizzo, Meg Thee Stallion, Quavo, who also spoke at the rally. So this is not something that's new, but it seems like it's a new discussion that's
Yeah,
happening.
I think, well, in this upcoming election, what we've seen from hip hop artists is a little unprecedented because it's obviously Kamala is black. I know that's also contentious too, but the lady's black. She's
Yes,
black.
thank you.
The woman is black. It's actually been really powerful for me personally to see all of these people like really going hard in terms of backing her. Because obviously, I think for Black people, most times everyone is kind of rallying behind whoever the Democratic candidate is. But I think it's beautiful to see in general, like everyone going like really hard for Kamala. I enjoy it.
Yeah, there has been like a lot of people. Like you
Yes.
said, a lot of artists, a lot
hmm
of not even just artists, I know we're talking about hip hop, but just celebrities who have really like just stepped up. And I'm like,
hmm
okay, this is becoming a
Right.
thing. So excuse me, I'll ask you this then. Where do we want to go with this first? Do you truly believe that rappers or artists, hip hop artists,
hmm
have an influence on the public's view about politics?
I think so because I believe that hip hop itself is inherently political.
Mm.
I think that its origins, while they probably weren't intentioned to be political, that hip hop, for like in large part, actually is very political. So, I think I can't necessarily speak to influence because the term influencer influence
It's the thing.
is very conflated these days, and I think that following someone like online doesn't necessarily translate to someone following you like in real life,
Yeah.
but and making similar decisions and like truly being like a part of that stan culture that people talk about. 'Cause I'm pretty sure, like, we have artists that we enjoy, like a Sexy Red, where I don't necessarily agree with her politics,
Yeah.
but, I can still jam the music, but yeah.
I'm the same way. I like Glorilla. I was
Mhm.
talking about it in a previous episode.
Yeah.
And she got on the news and when asked about President Joe Biden, she was like, they don't have anything to do with me. I'm
Mhm.
like, no, sis.
Yeah, and so one thing I will say, I can almost respect the people who take one side or the other a little bit more than someone who will say that doesn't have anything to do with me because as Black people, it
It
absolutely
absolutely
does.
does.
Especially when you think about Project 2025 and a lot of the things that a lot of Republican lawmakers are trying to put into place. This election does have a lot to do with us and what our
Yes.
future will look like.
I agree. And so that leads me to ask, like, should rappers or hip
Mhm.
hop artists, let me know which is the better one. um, should they endorse candidates or not? Like, is that their place or is that their
Mm.
lane? What do you think?
I think that if it if it feels to them the right thing to do to endorse a candidate, I say do it by all means. But I think my only critique is truly looking into the policies. Like, don't do it because it's gimmicky. Do it because you truly like believe in the
Mhm.
candidate. Because I think, especially like Sexy Red is perhaps the largest person on, a a famous scale that we've seen like supporting Trump at least in the hip hop space that we have, like, I mean, I guess outside of 50 Cent, who kind of backslid and is
Mhm.
now supporting Joe Biden. Um, you have to look beyond the $1,200 that he gave you like a couple years ago. And I think a lot of people get stuck on that. And it's unfortunate because he didn't want to give us that
Mhm.
$1,200. And that's a whole other like political conversation. But I think even beyond that, and this is also like my own personal opinion. I don't think that Trump even cares enough about Black people,
Mm.
especially women, for us to really truly be rallying behind him.
So I love how you said the gimmicky thing because
Mhm.
I was actually having a conversation with
Mhm.
my brother-in-law,
Okay.
and he felt like that the Meg Thee Stallion performance was like it came off as gimmicky. Do you
Mhm.
think that was because I
Yeah.
was like, I don't know. I'll be honest and say I
Yeah.
thought it was a little cringe because of the
Yeah.
audience. I was
Mhm.
like, they not picking up what she put in now.
So I can agree. I think it may have come off really cringy, but I will say I don't necessarily think it's gimmicky. I think we aren't the target demo for that. And I think when, we're talking about engaged voters, I think Megan coming out specifically and even Quavo, I think that a lot of us have trouble realizing,
Mhm.
especially because we spent the majority of our 20s like through that COVID pandemic. We're about to be in our 30s if we're not already in our 30s
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
That's not for us actually.
Gen Z actually let me know that it was
Yeah.
for them and they loved it.
Yeah, like that's for
Okay.
like that 18
Yeah.
to 24, 25 age group. And unfortunately, we are no longer a
Yeah.
part of that. And I think it's like that's who that's for. And it's like, yes, of course it can come off cringy to us and we have the right to have that critique, but
Yeah.
we've aged out. So
That's a good point because I do feel like one, I like Meg Thee Stallion.
yeah.
I was surprised to see. I'm like, Meg have on a suit.
Mhm.
Meg have on a
Yeah.
tie. It was a little crop top, but I'm like,
Mhm.
this is a different look.
Yeah, yeah.
And although I won't say that her, being at the rally was cringe because hey, like that's
Mhm.
her opinion. But
Yeah.
I just think the audience made it cringe because they didn't know the words and
Mhm.
things
Of
like that.
course. Of course. Yeah.
But will it turn me from voting?
Yeah, exactly. And I
I won't
don't
say that.
think it's that drastic. It's like not my audience.
Yeah.
But I get it. I get it.
But do
And
you think some people like, because there are a lot of people who's on the internet was like, I don't like this.
I did see the backlash from it, but I think it just takes me back to one, we've aged out and that wasn't for us. But also when you look at the setting of it all,
Yeah.
you are in Atlanta,
Yeah.
GA. Okay. And this is Kamala's rally, of course, but if Quavo was there, I'm sure there were a handful of other like young rappers, stars that were also in
Yeah.
attendance. They may not have performed or, made a statement or anything like that, but I think if anything, in a lot of like Black women candidates we've seen, whether presidential or not, whether it was for Senate races, congresswomen, um, the goal these days is to truly get out the vote. Cause I want to say Stacey Abrams, she was
She had everybody.
she was campaigning super hard. She
Yeah.
was also in Atlanta, I think.
Yeah, I don't know for this particular
Oh
thing,
yeah, not for this election,
she for
like
Georgia. Yeah.
Stacey Abrams. She was campaigning super hard. She was in hookah lounges. So it's like you have to realize
engaged
like
voters love a hookah lounge.
okay. Okay, but like she was in hookah lounges trying to get people registered to vote. So it's like we have to realize like we didn't graduate college, we didn't did the things. So it's like it's important that we kind of pass the baton to that younger generation, because I think that they're also coming up in a very like contentious political space. And so it's important that they're also informed. And if it takes Megan Thee Stallion to do that,
hey,
not my cup of tea, but okay.
Not my cup of tea. I'll ask one more question about this, because I do kind of want to pivot, but the fact that Quavo was there as well, we didn't see any backlash.
Yeah.
So do you think that maybe this is an age group thing, but is it that people are looking to, and specifically the Black community, because they were the ones with the most comments.
Yeah.
Is the Black community looking for rappers to perform or speak in support of these political candidates? Is because then after folks started saying like, well, Quavo was there, then the argument became, well, he spoke, he didn't perform. Like, do you think that's a real thing, or that was a cop out?
In a way, it can be a cop out, but something I've also realized working, in an industry adjacent space, I think as Black people, sometimes I feel like we rely too heavily on our celebrities and public figures who don't operate in political spaces all the time to be the faces of politics. And it's like, I don't necessarily support the whole concept of LeBron, like the whole shut up and dribble thing. I don't think that that's true. Like, you should be engaged, like civically, but
not the shut up and dribble.
Yeah, it's like, I don't
like,
think it should be.
Job.
Yeah, like I don't think it's just like, yes, just do your job. But it's like, do we really want to hear politics from some of these people? Do we really want to hear politics? Because I think that also changes. Like, if we truly knew. Especially because it's like these rappers, celebrities, they slowly move up to that the talented 5%, They don't make the kind of money we make. Do we want to hear how they actually feel?
Because do y'all really relate to us?
Exactly. And they don't.
Or some of them are just so young, like Glorilla. I had to understand, like, man, she's really young. Yeah. She probably does not understand the political landscape. So when she said they don't have anything to do with me, or that ain't got nothing to do with me, she really meant that, because she was like, I don't know what this stuff is about.
I think it's a lack of knowledge, but I think also in some ways, some people take that approach because politics can feel like a you can't win for losing sort of situation, right? Like you say, you damned if you do and you damned if you don't. Because if you say any one thing, it can sway your audience to think like, oh, she supports Trump, or oh, she supports Kamala. And politics is like, you don't want to talk about it at the Thanksgiving table because your uncle gonna say he a Trump supporter.
But it's me. I'm gonna talk about it at the Thanksgiving table.
And in my family, we will too.
But you don't want to have to stir the pot.
Exactly.
I'm gonna have to really stir the pot.
Because if you take it there, you're gonna have to really take it there. But they say,
mess around and find out. Thank you. Okay. Well, you made a good comment about, like, do we really want rappers, artists, hip hop artists to step into this realm? And I was looking at like our Houston political landscape and how some of our people in Houston have kind of stepped up and did a few things. So specifically, and I'm looking here because I had put some things in my phone about just like how our people have showed up. Slim Thug encouraged people to vote for Sheila Jackson Lee for mayor when she ran in 2023. Trey the Truth, and Scarface, they were honored by the Congressional Black Caucus for their community activism and political work.
Yeah.
Scarface, actually, he ran for City Council District
I
D
remember
seat in
that.
2019.
Yeah.
In 2020, Bun B, he finished the show and he promoted at the time the 24-hour polling. He urged fans to go out and vote. So like that's just a whole range of just our Houston, whether they running for office, telling people to get out the vote. Like, do you think that?
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's two different things. Get out the vote versus running for office. Like, do you have any opinions about how hip hop artists should do that?
I think the side I'll always be on is really just encouraging people to vote, because I think over the last few years, and I think especially since I've started at Essence, you realize how many people shy away from politics, and people just like you and me that have a belief system that it doesn't work, or they don't feel like a need to vote. And I think that that's always important. And, you know, we're Greek. We're a part of the same sorority too.
Yeah.
It ain't no way in hell I'm not voting. And I think it also comes from that historical context of like knowing what it took for Black people to vote.
Yeah.
But even beyond like our demographic of Black people, like it's so many people who are not registered and who could care less whether they vote or not. And I think it's like that's actually something that should be stressed more, because for so long there are people who never wanted us to vote, never wanted us to have the opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
And I think just because of that alone is what prompts me to feel like this is a civic duty that I need to do.
I agree. Getting out the vote is so important, and I think as we talk about like the hip hop landscape, it's really diving into like what level of influence does it really have? Because when the discussion about Meg the Stallion, I hate to go back to this, was brought up, I was like, you know, I love Meg, but I can't say that Meg performing swayed me one way or another.
Right.
Now, if Michelle Obama would have got on that stage, I would have been like, okay, now
you got my attention.
I heard auntie, you know? And so, but I think so much for whether is it the age thing or is it just people who are into hip hop that they actually are swayed, you know, because I had my brother on this show and he was like Kanye 2024.
Oof. Okay.
Right. And Kanye ran for office, but I didn't ask my brother actually if he actually voted at the back then for Kanye West. But you know, some of these artists, like they really do have an influence. And should they use their influence or should they just like stay in their lane?
I think
and you know, you like, how I want to answer?
I think that it's all about tapping into the power that you know that you have.
That's good.
Because I think that, again, even for Megan Thee Stallion performing at Kamala's rally, even for that to not be our cup of tea, knowing what she is capable of, it still sent a message to those people who are younger than us. Okay, Megan gonna vote for Kamala. I need to vote for Kamala. Almost like that Mean Girls thing, like she wore this, so I'm gonna wear this. You know, and it's like, again, like I said, I feel like a lot of us who are like 30 and up or entering into our 30s, we're past that. We are not as easily influenced. And that's why I say it's not for our demographic, but it's like that works for some people. And I think when you tap into that power that you know you do have the power to sway things one way or another. Whether people disagree or agree doesn't necessarily matter, but knowing that power is there and to tap into it and to use it is what's important.
I'm gonna do maybe 1 or 2, 3, 4 quick fire questions.
Okay.
Kind of quick, but maybe you might want to expound on them. So at hip hop concerts, should people be there registering to vote?
You know, I actually love that you asked that question. I was actually at Lollapalooza in Chicago last weekend. And the park grounds they spanned blocks. But at one point, there was a booth all weekend, and Lollapalooza was 4 days: Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Really? And it's coming up again.
And so outside, like near one of their, well, I only saw this this side of the park. But near one of their stages, they had guys out there asking them. Well, what I loved was like they had people out there asking them, "Hey, are you registered to vote?" And "Hey, have you had STD testing?" Both of which are super super important. But
Yeah.
it's like you have to meet the people where they're at, and I think like especially like I said, for those younger people, you got to meet them where they at.
Yeah.
And if they at Lollapalooza trying to have a good time and they not registered to vote, this is the prime opportunity to get them
It's the
registered.
prom. Yes, I
Yeah.
love going to a bar and like, hey, y'all registered.
Right.
Okay, so hip hop concerts, cool. Songs.
Mhm.
Should artists rap about voting in their songs?
I don't know that that can be captured in a tasteful way that doesn't come off corny.
Mhm.
Um, there are artists who are a little bit more on the political side, or their raps aren't super mainstream, like a Killer Mike.
Mhm.
He's not directly rapping about voting, but he is rapping about the things in his community that can still be done in a tasteful manner.
Mm.
Um, and it doesn't come off like super cringy,
Yeah.
but it's also like he's not saying I'm voting for Kamala Harris like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
in the booth, you know?
Okay.
Um so yeah, I don't think musical messaging is the right way, but again, like I said, I think what Kamala and Megan did,
That might be
that
some.
might
Hey,
be
they
the
say she
way to
got over a
go.
million followers on TikTok. I was like, oh, I didn't know that.
Right.
Okay. Interviews.
Mhm.
Should hip hop artists discuss voting in interviews?
Only if they're informed.
Okay, that's a good question. I mean, that's a good response.
Only if they're informed. I think that, and again, the journalist in me, it's how misinformation
Mhm.
happens.
Yeah.
Like, and especially in settings like this, on podcasts,
Yeah.
during interviews, at the radio station, you let a Negro get on the mic that don't know what they talking about, and
Mm.
it'll be
And
headlines
that's
for
what goes
days.
viral.
Yeah, and like I said, it'll go viral for days, and people will be talking about it, and unfortunately, some people may buy into that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, unless they're informed, I'm not trying to hear it,
Yeah.
you know? So,
So one more. Should artists be like invited to the White House for various voting events? I'm
I'm
like, what is
sorry.
that?
Because I had thought about something that I'm not gonna say
You
on
can
the
say
air,
it.
but only if they gonna act right.
Okay. Okay.
But I do think like Quavo's initiative, when I think before recently when he
Mhm.
was talking to Kamala about like gun safety, gun
Mhm.
violence, you
Yeah.
know, after the passing
Yeah.
of
Take off.
Takeoff, I think those are relevant things that can be addressed. Those are real issues.
Yeah.
You know, I think that makes sense to me
Okay.
as for reasons to actually visit there. But not if you gonna clown.
Please don't get to that White House and clown.
And not even to be acting goofy in front of white people, but just like don't
Just
show your ass at the White House, you know.
like, please.
No pun intended on Megan, but like but you know, but
They ain't
yeah,
gonna like
really
that.
like
Okay.
but yeah, you know, I think because there are a lot of real things that can be addressed past just like a photo op about, like, in all seriousness, like I think that beyond just like being posted up at the White House, I think that there are real things that they can be talking about that are happening in their communities that
Mhm.
need like addressing, like whether that be like, because Megan recently just did something where she's providing, I don't know, she's providing something for senior citizens here in
Oh, the
Houston after Hurricane Beryl.
generators
Yeah.
and
And
or I think yeah, generators.
right, and it's like I think the like climate change
Yeah.
is a real topic that can be addressed at the forefront by these types of people. And like I said, like with Quavo, gun violence, gun safety, like those are real things
So
that
if it's around issues that are relevant to them, then that will
it doesn't necessarily have to be relevant to them, but it's just like, you know, being active in your community
yeah.
and knowing what's going on, because obviously taking it to the presidential level doesn't always like yield the best results because it's always about your local
Thank
elections.
you.
But
So
it's
many local
still also
races.
bringing those things to the forefront, because I'm not going to say if they don't talk about it who will, but it's like it's in a it's an abuse of your platform if you don't.
Ooh, that's exactly where I was going. Abuse of the platform.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because I think that our community, we hold folks to so many higher standards with their
Yes.
platforms.
Yeah.
And we expect them to know about
Mm-hmm.
voting and about climate change. And whenever something blows up, we're like, well, where is so and so?
Mm-hmm.
Has she said anything? Has he said anything? And then it's like when they do say something that they don't like, they're like, you need to just shut up and dribble. And so it's like,
Mm-hmm.
also, we as a community have to really know who should be held to what level of
Yeah.
standard for what things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether they're a hip hop artist or not.
Yeah.
And it's just some things that's just like, that's why I was kind of going with the relevancy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
does it really make sense for this person to speak about this?
Mm-hmm.
Quavo speaking about gun violence and gun safety, very on par.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Very on par. They was even saying like with Meg when she performed the song Body, Body, Yaddy, Body, referencing, autonomy over women's bodies. Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I could see being on par. But bringing just, oh, we got so and so because Sexy Red, which
Yeah.
I listen to Sexy Red's music,
Mm-hmm.
but just because, oh, you have a platform, now you should talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
That might not be the best decision.
Yeah, and I think that's where I go back to just saying like only if you're well informed.
Yeah.
Because I can say for me, Sexy Red like endorsing Donald Trump does feel a little bit gimmicky, and we don't have to get into that, but
Well, just a little bit. Because I don't know if it was gimmicky. I think she meant every word that she said because of her misinformation.
So that's the thing. I don't think that she didn't mean it.
Yeah.
It's just still like with her image as a whole, like when you look at it with a bird's eye view, it's like, that wasn't the best look. And everything, I don't look at everything as like a PR stunt or anything like that, but I just.
Yeah, well, you in that world,
we could have went without,
Okay.
with that.
Okay. Okay, cool. Well, one, maybe two more.
Okay.
So should these political candidates, should they invite hip hop artists into their space? Is it, because I've asked a lot of questions like, should the hip hop artists like stay in their lane? But is it really, should these political candidates like stay in their lane?
I don't know that they should stay in their lane, so to speak, because if you are really trying to get out the vote, it's about, like I said, it's meeting people where they're at. And whether that's on a Twitch stream, Megan twerking on stage at a rally, like as corny as it may come off to us, I realize there are still like younger people that are in tune to those things and they are paying attention. And it's like, unfortunately, everyone is not receiving information from the traditional forms of media.
Yeah.
People are looking at the shade room. People are looking at social media.
Room?
I'm not a fan personally.
I don't follow them either, but I will go on there if I really need to figure out something real quick. I know they're gonna have it.
Yeah, I think that it's not good for the Black community personally. I also think with social media, we probably shouldn't be consuming that much content about other people's lives on such a
you
quick,
better speak
fast
journalist
basis. A whole nother conversation, but like I was saying, I think that everyone does not have that traditional form of media anymore. Like everyone is not reading the paper every day. They can pick up their phones.
They
and,
say they on TikTok.
Yeah, like they can pick up their phones and they have access to all this information. And unfortunately, like I said, like those are the ways that misinformation gets spewed. But it's like,
that's where we are.
It's where we are. And it's like, if people can like get on their phones and look on an app and see this and see that, then I think honestly, the candidates kind of have to do their due diligence about,
Yeah. And I just asked that. I think in my opinion, like I think it's okay that they contact hip hop artists.
Yeah.
Like you said, meet them where they are and, just make sure that like it's not a gimmick, that it's very strategic and intentional
Yeah,
with what you're doing.
I agree.
Because that's gonna come off so much more better, and
Mhm.
you're not gonna reach all audiences with all hip hop artists, which
Mhm.
is why I was like, okay, Meg wasn't your cup of tea, you know, but it was somebody's cup of tea,
Right.
and they are very,
Agreed.
you know, mobilized. So,
Mhm.
I'll ask you this. I ask everybody this on the
Okay.
show. Do you think it is important to vote, and why?
I absolutely think it's important to vote. I think it's crazy to not vote. And granted, there is a lot of voter suppression happening all over the country, but people really fought for our right to vote.
Mm.
And I think that that is so important. And I think also just being very tied to my roots, like beyond familial ties. Everybody on my dad's side of the family, we're all Deltas, and my granny would be damned if I didn't vote. And like, but even that aside, I think, like I said, like when you know your history and you know where you come from, um, it would almost be painful for me to not vote.
Yeah,
Especially when you know the struggle and you know what it took to get to this point.
yeah,
I think it's important. But I will say, like, I can see both sides. Like, I can see the ways in which some people may feel that, like, voting may not be super effective or that
mm.
their vote doesn't count. I see both sides, but that will never stop me from
Period.
voting, you know?
Period. That's my good sis.
Yeah.
Period.
No, and I think, like I said, like, politics is such a contentious thing. I even though I may lean more one way, I also realize like people are still bringing up valid points
Yeah,
about like the political process.
yeah.
So,
Well, you know what I said, that I believe that the average American really is in the middle,
mhm.
and not one side or the other.
Right.
But this country just hasn't gotten to that point where we can all boldly proclaim and say, like,
Right.
I'm not really rocking with either one of y'all.
Mhm.
But we will talk about that in season 3.
Ooh.
So I want to thank y'all for tuning in. Thank you for your
Thank you for
insight.
having
Yes,
me.
it was good.
Yes.
Y'all, thank y'all for tuning in for all the episodes this season. We have so much in store. Y'all have asked for From the Hoods to the Polls part 2. So we're probably gonna bring that back. We're gonna
Mhm.
bring some new guests, some flavor. So y'all just follow us, subscribe to our channel, because we have to get to the polls in November, no matter who you voting for. We
Absolutely.
got a couple of 87 days, 86 days until the polls. So
Mhm.
thank y'all, and we're out. Bye.
Bye.